I'm going to talk you through designing a pollinator-friendly planting scheme for your own communities. And I'm going to be talking about a bed in my community. It was traditionally planted up every year with annuals, with begonias, so it was a good place to pick. I wanted to introduce more pollinator-friendly plants into the scheme. So the first thing to do then is to look at the bed in question. This bed gets full sun. It's slightly sheltered because there is a hedgerow close by, but it is a little bit exposed, so I had to take that into account when I was choosing the plants. The soil in the bed is quite good. It's free draining. It had been full of bindweed, but we dug this all out by hand. Every little bit of the root was picked out, so I knew it was pretty weed free. And maintenance is an important thing to think about. I knew that I was going to be planting up the bed, and really I was going to be the person maintaining it. So this involves watering in the plants, if there's a drought, keeping the bed watered, keeping the weeds down, especially in the first year while the perennials establish and fill out. After that it gets a little bit easier. In year 2 there's less weeding, but in the first year you do need to keep an eye on the perennials and make sure that they're thriving and the weeds aren't taking over. So I knew the conditions, I knew what the soil was like, I knew I was going to be maintaining it. Then I started to think about the colour scheme. Did I want a whole lot of colour? I generally don't like all colours mixed together. I think it can look a little bit chaotic. So I went with a contrasting colour palette, mostly yellows and purples. The reason for this is because most of the plants were coming from my own garden here. In one way this made it easier. I didn't have hundreds of plants to choose from in a plant catalogue, but all of the plants in the bed came from divisions or self-seeders in my own garden. So I knew in one way what plants I was going to be selecting. So once I had the plant selected, then I measured the bed. It's 4 meters by 2 meters. And then I start to put the information onto paper. And I'm going to continue now and show you that. So now I have my dimensions. I know it's 4 meters by 2 meters. And I begin the process of transferring it to paper. So this is my scale rule. The scale I'm using is 1:2 or 1:20. So you can see we have 4 meters here. And if we turn it the other way, it's 2 meters. I tend to draw out a grid. So each one of these little squares is 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter. And this is generally the size that most perennials will eventually fill out to. So this just makes it easier for me. The next thing I do is I list the seasons. You can see I have spring, I have autumn, I have summer, and I have winter. And I do this to make sure that I include something from every season. So for spring I have my pulmonaria, my globe master, which is an allium, there's some tulips, and there's some aubrietia. For summer there's a lot more plants. There's nepeta, there's verbascum, there's achillea, and for autumn really we have rudbeckia and verbena. For winter I'm going to add some bulbs, some snowdrops. In the first year of planting, it will take a while for these perennials to fill out the space. So there will be gaps in between these for the first year. So because of this, I add in some annuals, some marigolds, some sunflowers, some cornflowers, some cosmos. And again, I had grown all of these from seed. I also think about the structure. How is this bed going to look in the winter? So if this was a larger bed, I possibly might have added in some shrubs. But it's a little bit smaller, so instead I use grasses, Brisa and the stipias. So Brisa is one of our native grasses, and I put one in this bed. So the first thing I do when I'm drawing is I put the structural plants in. So either the shrubs or the grasses. You can see I have a big stipia here, a smaller Brisa media, and a smaller Tenicium. So it depends on what the eventual size of the plant is going to be. And then I start to fill in around these. So I have my pulmonaria here on the edge because it's a nice low growing plant. I have a lovely pink geranium here. It will drape down over the edge. And I would keep going until I have filled in all the squares. And then it's very easy for me to know how many plants I need. The taller plants tend to go towards the center. So I have my lovely rudbeckia here. I have a verbascum here. I'll probably put a verbena bonariensis in here, so I'll do a VB, and another one here because I have lots of these. They have self-seeded all over my garden. And I continue like that until all of the scheme is planted up. And then I know how many plants I need and I bring them to the site. And often when you've brought them to the site, you'll change your mind, you'll move things around, or you mightn't have all the plants that you wish that you had. And that's okay. In this bed, it's worked quite well this year, but next year I also want to include some native plants. I'm going to add some red campion, possibly some foxglove, and some viper's bugloss. I'm growing these from seed myself. So it's a work in process. And these pollinator friendly beds, they're a real opportunity to be creative, to put in the plants that you love and you know, and then you'll get to know other plants as well.